Thanks very much for giving us the opportunity today to have a chat with you. We're going to go through the agenda today, so the brief we've had is really to help you understand a little bit about some of the design, some of the innovation that goes into some of the products, as well what we're actually trying to achieve to the benefit of our customers. Okay, so I'll give a brief overview for about 3 minutes, and then hand over to Naomi, who is the engineer for Wales, South Wales, and for Bristol, and then supported by Darren, who's supported you on the project here, covering the Newport area. Okay. We are a direct supply business, so we manufacture and supply directly. So that's sort of need that exists, and also powerful sort of market. It means that we have trained staff and trained to a level where we have direct contact with you, and when you see someone in a Hilti shirt, they have themselves knowledge or access to colleagues who have knowledge as well. Okay, so it's sort of continuous, and that is the philosophy worldwide. It's based in 120 countries, directly ourselves, and now we have 26,000 employees, so up from 23. Within South Wales, how does that look? We have at any time 19 different individuals who are forward-facing, interacting, based on trade. That could be interior, mechanical, electrical, building envelope, building construction, as Darren, and supported by a network of engineers and also other colleagues as well, from product development and from trade management as well. Roughly, research and development, we invest £170 million every year. So for us, our motto is outperform, outlast. We should have something in the market that performs better and does the job to exact standards. Okay, thank you. So that's 5% of our sales that will go into research and development, and through our direct contacts, we have just under now about 250,000 direct contacts with users every single day, and it's really these interactions that we're able to capture and feed back to product. Some very good examples within South Wales, where we've had people from our head office in Liechtenstein, Sharn, come to see sort of various products, how they've actually worked, and have taken away and made modifications based on what they've actually seen. So it's not something that happens in far off places, in America, South America, throughout the world. These are live situations that happen here. So your feedback that you actually have is crucial, and also in the design of things, the challenges of designing and the challenges of working within legislation and safe working practices, have really sort of led us to sort of develop sort of top class safe. Okay, thanks. So just an overview of actually where some of the things that we do. Engineering, specifications, design. We have a sort of team around the world, in fact global engineers who are actually working with global design offices as well, and having transparency through that. And quite often, the earlier that we have the chance to actually speak, our engineers, designers, the more chance we have to help them solve problems as well. So some of these are right at the very sort of conceptions. Lining, which we're quite well known, and what we call direct fasting as well, which is was the made in 1981, which is our DX, but also cutting, grinding, very much invested a lot in cordless technology, and then also as well to fasten the installations, and then also sealing holes as well, so fire prevention, passive fire prevention products. And ultimately now as well, we're developing, we've invested this year just 30 heads alone out of the 700 that are in GB in our service sector as well. So this is enabling sort of companies to actually have a full transparency on their business in terms of their assets, their tooling, where it is, and it works via a number of ways over the laptop and also off Android phones, where from a health and safety point of view, anyone at any time, your colleagues, can actually look and see exactly the service history of tools, and exactly how long they should be using those tools as well. Okay, so that's some of the things that are quite new. So at this stage, I'll hand over to Noemi, and you'll see some of the things here, some of the products and the linking with some of the tools, how we've actually developed those to make the installation process much more sort of secure and risk-free. Because for whatever product we design in terms of anchors, it has to be installed properly as well. So there's a few things here that may interest you. Okay, thank you.
Hello everyone. I'm just going to go through some of the anchors and all the innovations we have to make sure that the installation and the whole process is safe. So we do have cast-in channels, cast-in anchors, and also post-installed anchors. We are going to talk about the post-installed anchors today. There are two major types, mechanical and chemical anchors, when it comes to fixings. Mostly we'll focus on chemical anchors today. So why is it so important to talk about safety? I think you probably heard about the Big Dick incident in Boston, where there was a resin anchor specified. They ignored the specification, used a different resin. The resin was not suitable for that application. Also, the installation quality was poor, and even though they had proof of installation testing, they ignored the test results. So what happened is that a few of the large concrete panels fell off, and unfortunately there was a car underneath, and the person died. So the passenger died. Also, they used the wrong polyester resin in damp conditions at the back of the rail tunnel. So you really need to make sure from the selection of the anchors all the way through the installation process that you choose the right anchors. Another common case is swimming pools using the wrong rod, the wrong steel quality. You can have steel corrosion, cracking, and there's always the corrosion where it's a cost element, and when we keep recommending high corrosive resistance anchors in swimming pools, people come back to it, it's expensive, but there is a reason to use those. Yeah. So there is now a code of practice, BS 8539, so if you to the CFA, it's all available on the Construction Fixing Association website. It covers everything, all the responsibilities from the specifier all towards the contractor and the installation as well. Again, it starts with selecting how to select an anchors based on ETAG, the European method of designing anchors, which is slowly moving to Eurocode, so it's going to be designed by Eurocode from next year, to the installation process, how to install them properly, and the testing when it comes to determining resistance if you do not have an ETA, or also the quality controls element as well. The important part is what happens if you have a specified anchor. It states in this, in clause 4, that if you want to change the specification, you need to let the original specifier know and have it approved. If that doesn't happen, the person who changes the specification automatically becomes a specifier and then liable for the anchor. Just something to keep in mind. Again, corrosion, there's a part in corrosion, choosing the right anchor for the right application. Make sure, because it's a small anchor, but if you put it in the wrong time, it corrodes in 2 years, it's going to be a big issue of putting the same place. You can't use the same one. This is where specifiers get a bit confused of using 100% utilization. You see that from the mean ultimate resistance, we take the 5% fractile, and we also factor in the temperatures and durability issues. So by the time you get to design resistance, there are quite a lot of safety factors already involved. So design resistance, what's usually specifiers work with, recommended low if you just have an unfactored action. But you can see there's quite a lot of safety involved. It's usually 1.4 design between design and recommended load, so 1.4 additional safety factors. So based on the time method. So let's try and start talking about the different ways of making sure that the installation is correct. One of the main issues when it comes to chemical anchors is hole cleaning, because we have ETAs, we know what the anchors can achieve in concrete. The only big question if they were installed properly or not. And you can see on the figure there, with and without hole cleaning, there's a massive, massive difference in the load bearing capacity. So again, what happens if you got a hammer drill hole? If you don't clean the holes properly, you're going to have massive amount of dust in the holes. So when you got put the resin in, the resin is going to stick to the dust instead of the concrete surface. And again, the same figure can show the large difference. All you can do is some cases you can pull the whole anchor out, all resin, and you're just going to have it covered with dust. So there are two ways around it, how to get around with the hole cleaning, because when you're hole cleaning, it takes a lot of time. If you have 2,000 anchors, obviously the first few will be done properly. How can you make sure that even the last one's going to be safe? One option is start the design process using the HZ Plus. It's a special rod. It's got a threaded bar at the end, but it has a special wedge shape on the bottom. I'll pass this around in a second. It has a special coating, so the resin doesn't even stick to the surface. It works as a mechanical anchor. It wedges itself out, as you can see, and when you pull the anchor, it's going to basically just wedge itself in and work as a mechanical. So with this one, we have ETA approvals with the HY200 resin, so it does not need any hole cleaning at all. So that's one way of getting rid of the hole cleaning part. Option number 2 is installation and automatic cleaning. You can have a hollow drill bit, which will help you with the health and safety issue, so you will not have dust floating around anywhere. And also, if you need to diamond core for some reason, you can use the roughening tool and have the same surface as the hammer drill hole. And you can use, again, the same HY200 resin, which is approved only for hammer drilling, even in a diamond core hole. You just need to make sure that you roughen it up with the roughening tool properly. So, look at what the hollow drill bit does. Again, we go back to the same figure, and if you can see that with the hollow drill bit, you get the same result as you would have with manual hole cleaning, but it eliminates all the issues of having the pump, the brush, and then doing it properly every single time. And also, you have no dust floating around anywhere, so it's again for health and safety issue as well. The other thing I talked about is the roughening tool. You can see if you don't clean the hole, you're going to have a very smooth surface with a diamond core hole, and you will not get a lot of bond strength out of it. If you do clean it properly, then you get that far, and then you use safe set, meaning with the roughening tool, you still have a lot more bond strength. There is a resin, the RE500 pure epoxy resin, which could be used in a diamond core hole without roughening, but if you want to have an increased bond strength, you can just roughen up the hole. So as we see with the HY2, smaller, okay, brilliant. Again, you can see there's a huge effect in hole cleaning when you just have a normal threaded bar, and if you have the HZ anchor rod, there is no difference if you did the hole cleaning or not. Basically, it saves you a lot of time compared to manually cleaning the hole, and you can make sure that it works all the time. And it has ETA approvals to be used with the HY200 window. So the different options when it comes to the HZ rod, it comes from M6 to M20, that's the largest size we do, and then also when it comes to the automatic cleaning with the hollow drill bit, the smallest is M12 and M28, and it's, again with rebar, you can go up to larger with the hollow drill bit. And especially when it comes to rebar, you have larger embedment depth, so it is very important you clean the holes properly. Manual hole cleaning with is very, very not fun at 500-600 millimeter embedment depth, so a hollow drill bit saves you a lot of time and a lot of hassle. So these are different options. I talked about the RE500, the slow curing pure epoxy resin, which is the advantage of curing underwater as well, but at these temperatures in a vat-based material, it can easily take up to 24 to 48 hours to cure. That's something to keep in mind. The HY200 is a fast curing hybrid resin Again, we both could be used in dry and wet concrete. The only difference is that you can't use it underwater. And the HY200 with the HZR has the approvals for no hole cleaning, but it's only with the HY200, so it's only with that resin. Again, you got a cordless electric dispenser, which will help you set the right amount to make sure that you get the right amount of resin in. So you can calculate the volume of resin you need for each anchor, and you can just set that you get the right amount of resin, so you're not wasting resin, and also you actually fill the holes properly. When you have larger embedment depth, we usually recommend using a piston plug to make sure that you don't have air bubbles and you fill the holes properly. So when it comes to the piston plug, you put it at the end of the nozzle and you just put it at the bottom of the hole, and it's just going to push itself out, and you can be sure that you fill the holes properly. Missing reinforcement. We talk about using diamond coring if you hit rebar, but if you really don't want to hit rebar, you can also use the PS250 ferro scanner, PS7000 X-scan, which is a radar scanner. Both essentially with the PS250, you have a large 2D map of all your rebar, and also it could be used for quality control because it can do even statistical analysis of concrete cover. It measures the concrete cover and the rebar size accurately. That's the only two things it does, but it does it very well and very accurately. So it could be used to have a small section, and you can send it to the designers as well if they need to design a plate and want to avoid the rebar. So you can scan, have a 2D design, and that could be imported now Profi's Anchor software. The same goes with the PS1000. You can scan up to 300 millimeter in 3D, so you can scan both layers of rebar. Same thing goes, this could be sent to the specifiers or designers so they can design the plate around it to avoid rebar. There's one thing we try to press on is pull-out tests. When it comes to pull-out tests, and we have an ETA, we know what the anchors can do. It's again the installation. So there are two types of tests. Could you just move to the next slide, please? So let's see, why do you pull-out tests? Because we get quite a lot of requests and quite a lot of times we try to explain why we don't need a pull-out test. I know it's a touchy thing. It's basically, the base material could be anything from concrete to non-standard concrete masonry, non-standard masonry. When it's a standard concrete, it's a new build, so you know the strength of the concrete, you know it's not corroded concrete. Then you have ETA, then you do not need to know, that you don't need to do determining resistance because you know what you're going to get. The only question is installation, so it's a quality control, so you're going to do down this route. You need to test at least 3 anchors, and the test load will depend on how many anchors you test, and it's all in the BS 8539. If you don't have an ETA, or if the material is outside of the ETA, as in some cases stone or a sort of masonry, there are 2 options to do. You can do destructive testing to failure, or you can do non-destructive testing to determine a test load. Again, how to determine the test load will be in the same CF8 guidelines. Usually you can do ETAG as well, but usually recommend using the CF8 guidelines. You test minimum of 5 anchors, and it's usually 3 times, minimum 3 times the unfactored action. Again, this is something we can help you to determine the right test load when in question. But you can see, if you know that it's a concrete and you know there's an ETA, you don't need to go up this route. The only thing that's questioned is the installation. So if you don't trust the installation, or for quality control you want to do testing, you need to go down this route and make sure you follow the CFA guidelines. Just go. Oops. Sorry. So the different innovations, we have a few different angles. Can you just click one more? So it is the large HSL. This is a mechanical sleeve anchor. It has a red cap, because most of the times when it comes to sleeve anchor, the only thing that can go wrong is that they're just going to use a torque wrench and torque it to maximum and crack the concrete around. With the safety cap, you can't over tighten it, it just comes off. Just click to the next. This is the HD undercut anchor, which has a special drill bit, so you can be sure that you drill to the right depth, because it's a self
No complicated and expensive special devices are required to set this heavy-duty anchor. Also, no great effort is required when using the simple setting tool attached to a hammer drill.
They've been used on this site, hasn't they used them?
HDAs.
And they took them back out after.
A mark on both
Yeah.
enter and setting tool shows the user whether or not the Hilti HDA has been set properly. The anchor's expansion sections have only been properly expanded when the red mark on the threaded rod is visible about 0.5 to 1 millimeter above the sleeve and face. Another characteristic of the new Hilti HDA anchor is the very low expansion force it sets up. This is shown very well by the free movement of an in-place and free movement of an in-place anchor, and it makes this anchor ideal for fastenings with a small spacing and edge distance. A comparison makes it clear in concrete.
Yeah, just the other option when it comes to chemical anchor is just using capsule anchors. You know what the amount of resin ditches to colour limits.
They've been used on this site as well by Denham, that's what they used on the scaffolding.
Yeah. So Denham have used the dustless system to drill the holes,
The hollow drill.
the hollow drill bits. Yeah, so that's a new innovation, and also the capsules. So that prevents the resin falling into the watercourse as well. Exactly the right amount, the right hole, so there's no wastage as well, no seepage. So it's a good example of what's been used on this project that. It seems on the face of it, but a lot of that is some innovation due to the circumstances, environmental and also safety as well.
And also the last one is the H3 anchor when you've got the cage. And if you go through, you can't reuse it. So you know how many, if you can still reuse the screw or not. As long as it doesn't get through, it's still fine. If you go through, you have to check it out. But until then, you can reuse it as many times as you wish.
As far as I know, that's still the only screw anchor that's got approvals, isn't it, for reuse?
And it has approvals to be adjusted, so you can adjust 10, 15 mil if you just need to.
Naomi and I have been up to the edge of the valley this morning to talk to them, funny, just coincidentally actually today, about setting anchors, and we discussed these with Kevin Gronnell, who probably know Kevin.
Okay.
And he's given us the name of Steve Hall,
Steve Hall.
and he said you need to speak to him.
Yeah, we had a moratorium on screw anchors
I
in use in
remember
certain
saying
places, but it was down to the brittleness of the anchor.
Yeah.
I know it wasn't one of ours, but there's been a few.
But I think he's very touchy about using screw anchors in it.
You know, but I'm a big fan because there are not that many things that go wrong. Because if you've got a sleeve anchor, you over tighten it, you crack anything around it. You can just use a battery power tool with the screw anchors, and again, you don't have the issues of leaking them automatically. So I quite like those. I know they're concerns.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. That's happened because of, in some instances, because of injury, possible sort of death. In some cases, I think some may have been seriously injured, possibly died on a site in the southeast, and I think it comes down to the quality of the actual steel in some of the cases as well, and consistency.
Yeah.
And again, that's another thing that we don't compromise on as well. It is really sort of consistent. We do batch testing very, very frequently.
If you specify, for instance, a resin anchor for use with temperature, specific temperature, and specific water, how do you test that? Do you only take laboratory tests? Or?
To get an ETA, and the ETA includes the minimum and the maximum temperature. To get that, you need to go through a third-party testing, tremendous amount of testing. This is again what I didn't mention, what the RE500 pure epoxy resin can be used. -5, -10 degrees. So
it's part of the 176 million pounds you put in is part of that testing.
Yes, we have a big plant in Countering in Germany, and a lot of the anchors we tested there to destruction before they go forward for testing as well, and they're independently tested as well. So a lot of the testing reports that we have that are put together and approved by independent sort of test houses as well, because we have to have that sort of that independence, and then go forward to get the European technical approval.
If we had a unique place for an anchor you didn't have an anchor for. How long would it take to derive an anchor or to design an anchor and pursue that? I mean, are you talking 12 months, 2 years?
It could do. We have developed. I'm sorry, if you know, but I know that we have developed them for projects. But yeah, the process does take some time because it has to go through that rigorous checking.
Is it age testing, accelerated age testing and all that, but it takes a very, very long time. In many cases, there is an existing anchor, we can just do additional testing with an existing anchor.
Right.
And that's a special application.
Have you got something in mind, Tony, or is it?
No, it's just a general question, how long the testing process takes.
Or is it varies, but like you said?
Are you asked to design anchors for specific locations?
I'm not sure.
At all, or do you
I think
just present a catalogue?
With modifications, for certainly we have been asked to do that, and it has happened. But I don't think we then put it into production because somebody maybe just a unique one-off situation. But that HDA anchor that you saw the person set in there that sort of wobbles, that's an undercut anchor. And I know there's been variations on that, maybe just the heads or the threads, but that's usually used where the concrete sort of coverage is very limited, very small, very shallow. But I'm aware of that. When we went to Sharm a couple of years ago, we saw some of those unique products that have been sort of made with a little description. But invariably, the costs then for us are obviously quite significant. Developing the tooling that has to be put into the point of the anchor if we don't see a common application for it in the future.
So for you to guarantee a fixing, then you'd have to be in a correct environment.
Yes.
Set by a trained person. Use the correct setting tools.
I think the correct setting tools. I think the trained person, is person of competency, so they follow the instructions. Right. And one of the small things, but very important, is that within every box or on every box or every individual sachet of chemical, you'll see an instruction manual in different languages on the inside as well. So and on the inside of the box, it will say like the depth of hole, the hole size, and also the number of times you have to blow it and brush it. And so,
and that guarantees a fix.
Yes, if it's installed in accordance with the instructions that are given, then obviously the loadings then apply. The recommended load would be adhered to.
I've got a question for the costing team. How many wall brushes have we got on site? Thought so.
Now they're the correct size as well.
One of the issues we had on this project was that the fixings within the tunnel and the concerns about fire.
Yes.
I believe the fire in 2011, I believe the temperature went up to about 800 degrees in there. Is there a specific bolt you would use for that situation, or?
Yes, we have fire ratings.
Quite a few of our anchors have fire rating.
Right.
But if there is a fire, well, there needs to be a fire design as well, which again can be done in our Profis anchor software. The load does not necessarily need to be just a static load. It can be dynamic loading, as in seismic events or rail as well, and also fire. So you can design to fire up to 60 minutes. Above 60 minutes, it gets very, very difficult because it still uses its strength. So above 60 minutes, very, very tricky.
It's one of the issues we had with the tunnel manager, that he wanted a sacrificial level of concrete in there. So all the bolts we had to go an extra length, because he perceived that 50 mil of it would be sacrificial and come out. No, didn't really agree with that. That was the way we went forward with him in the end. I just feel there must be something out there which there's a risk of going up to 800 degrees or even higher.
You can do a full design in our software, and there are quite a few of our anchors that have approvals, meaning, again, third-party tested for fire. Even from the capsules to the HDAs to the Haas anchors to the H200.
Right. So you could do that for all?
Yes, it could be done in the software, again, up to 60 minutes. Above that.
And when you look online at the online catalogue within there, there's various symbols, and quite a number of our anchors are fire rated, and I think that's one of the things that sometimes where the specification is maybe not discussed, or the anchor is recommended because there's a particular sort of maybe a seismic or a sort of dynamic loading that's required. So on the face of it, if you just look at normal loadings against competitors without going into the details of why the designer chose that anchor, there can be some sort of risks.
Do you have worldwide many anchor failures, or that you have to investigate?
We always investigate. So if there is an anchor that failed, we always go and investigate. So it's part of my job as an engineer to go and fill out a form, the failed anchor and everything is all got back sent to Sean to make sure that.
Sean is where our head office.
Sorry, Sean in Liechtenstein is where our head office is and where our R&D center is. 90+% of the failures are due to poor installation.
You look at the conditions, especially chemical, outdoor. Someone's got a crane that's come in. The crane's on hire. It's raining. What do? Do I change the resin to an RE500 that's okay in damp, or do I? These are some of the challenges for some of the fixers, that they have. And is the hole being cleaned? Is it dry? Those are usually the common factors with failure, and it's usually around chemical.
Like saying you couldn't change that because you end up in the position of the specifier.
Yeah, you need to notify and have it approved
exactly.
by the original specifier.
Yeah,
exactly.
But it's very important to notify, because when you choose an anchor, they're not just the size, it's not just the load, it's the environment, and there are, as I said, fire, and there are all sorts of other considerations already taken into account. So you can't just swap, because there's quite a lot going in and change the anchors. But most of the anchor failures are either installation or choosing the wrong anchor in the first place. Haven't seen anything like manufacturing issues yet. Those are not really.
I think in a situation like that, when you're saying about where somebody's working over the weekend and night shift in the roads or the tunnels closed, for example, and you haven't got that time to make those decisions or to get it changed, I suppose there's a lot of money involved, I'm sure, but I think sometimes the temptation of whoever's doing it, we just get it done and hope for the best, essentially, when really speaking, they should either take measures, if it's, for example, because it's raining and the hole's going to get filled, is take measures to stop that happening, but they don't take these things into consideration perhaps beforehand. You could perhaps put up a temporary tent or something, that a gazebo of some description, one's proof for that sort of thing, but that would stop the holes getting filled with it, if that's the sort of thing that potentially could happen. But, I appreciate that. I mean, I know that when Fres and they were looking for a tool to take out the HDAs that they fitted, they were panicking like hell because we were struggling to get hold of one in time because it was going to cost them a load of money. It was the money that sort of came into it, if you like, before, that was the main sort of thing. But again, this is sort of not unique, but it's very unusual in so much as you were so tied down to times and moving. But it's probably more of a forward planning issue than, because you can't change the specification or something like that on the night that they're doing it, then it's impossible. So sometimes you have to perhaps leave it rather than just go ahead with it. So, and then what's that?
Yeah, that's about it.
Any other questions?
Yeah, one item I think that you can improve is you keep saying you're committed to safety. The gentleman driving in the whole go on, you have a dust mask on, you didn't have all the money, we were all singing off that.
You're absolutely right. I've made a note of that. I did comment to Tony at the time. But,
the voiceover by Stephen Hawking was nice, yeah?
It is rather dated, but we shouldn't be showing things like that.
I think you guys do a great job for us. I think lots of the stuff. Lots of people are around today here. I can see some of our engineers. I've never heard of an old brush. We'll take that away with them. But yeah, good stuff.
But I think, and we've mentioned it before, I think that the hollow drill bit is something that probably doesn't get used enough, but it does. I know that, well, as you know, they use them on the scaffolding application, and it just meant you've got critical issues with it. That's always what the results, but it just removed that problem straight away, and the capsules as well. So not everything, like you said, some things are probably unique, may take a long time when you can't do it, but for most things we've got some sort of solution.
One of my other major concerns is when Hilti employer, not Fixings, can actually come up with a smart bit of kit that tells you what vibration is being generated by a bit of kit, lifetime, to your phone or to a wrist app. So with a built-in tremor meter actually says, yeah, I'm drilling is 6 meters a second or 60 meters a second. Not just going to look at the book, put it all together and make a calculation, and yeah, you're okay.
Yep.
On this 6-year-old bit of kit.
So the challenge for you is actually measuring the live vibration data rather than the manufacturer's data, and I think
because
you're very right.
Again, coming out of the factory, your data will be very, very accurate. But if you use it 2 or 3 years in different environments and used by different people, the world will change.
Yeah.
And as well as the challenges I've given to Speedy is when they go off and service their bits of kit, why don't they do the vibration measurement again? And they can't give me a good answer to it.
Yeah.
We've got lots of these sharp, very smart timers, that's all they are, and nobody yet has installed a tremor meter in a light bit of kit that will talk to the smart electronics and say, this is what you want.
And I think it's when we've discussed certain things like this, also about positioning equipment, GPS built into the tools as well, in design for drilling in exactly the right places. There's various things that it could do. It's just really sort of cost prohibitive. A drill that costs, one of our drills that maybe costs £600 or so, this sort of technology could be another couple of £1,000 or so. But I think it's a very valid point, and one that we would like to advance.
The first person that introduces this is going to make an absolutely astronomical amount of money, because everybody's going to start buying your kit, because instantly all the illegal implications and risk disappears.
Yes, and I think the frustration for us is that in the manufacturers, or in the guidelines, legally, I mean, for something like tamping, for breaking concrete, for instance, the actual live test is in a factory is actually to tamp some ball bearings. Now that has no relevance really to the concrete that you find yourself up against, which is really quite hard. But those are some of the guidelines that were originally sort of laid out. And I think, from our point of view, we do have tools that sort of that drill quicker, consistently quicker, and we have services where you can get free services to keep the vibration levels down and be proactive in that. So there are a number of ways of sort of reducing or mitigating the liability, but accurate sort of measure of online of live data. It's something that we would welcome, because that lab test bears no relation to what goes on. And I'm sure you put one of our tools against some of the competitors, and you can certainly feel some sort of difference.
I think your kit is good, and you're completely honest about some of the vibration stuff, because some of your stuff is really at the top end of the use scale.
Yes.
I think others are maybe not as honest as you guys.
Yeah, we like to use that live vibration data because ethically, we think we have a duty to disclose that, and that's one thing that we wish was more throughout the industry accepted, that legislation that be put in place. And some of our trigger times are short, but it's what that tool can do in that time as well needs to be considered, the productivity of it as well. But what's your experience then? Have you been doing a lot of live testing on tools yourself?
Live measuring or monitoring, say costing unfortunately over the years have been 4 or 5 vibration notices, one down vibration, injuries to our employees. So we're a bit focused on it.
Yes, okay. And which office does that drive from? Is that from Maidenhead?
From Maidenhead, yeah.
From Maidenhead, yeah, okay. All right, okay, well, thanks. I mean, I'd like to catch up with you on that at some stage afterwards, yeah. Okay.
Any questions?
Where are the free cups and the pens?
Pens we can sort afterwards. Cups are a bit of a challenge at the moment, but we will try hard, don't worry. I'm having to take one from one of our competitors here as well, but the contents were very gratefully received, anyway.
Great, if there's no more questions, you show appreciation. Thank you very much.